This is Murder Bag. All of my content is from the investigations I have personally conducted. All persons named are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. This is the story of what we know regarding the witnesses and many of the things I have accumulated throughout my investigations. Some things are intentionally left out, as many of my investigations are still active with law enforcement or in the courts. Brandy Nicole Osborne has been missing since Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2020. She was 37 years old at the time with 3 kids, also caring for her teenage sister. They lived in Johnston City, Williamson County, Illinois. Brandy's family and friends have shared her story with me. Brandy left her children at home to meet Jacob Minton at the Calvert City, Kentucky shipyard, which was run by the company Wepfer Marina. Jacob was reportedly the captain of the ship. Brandy and Jacob were broken up the night she disappeared. Brandy and the kids had moved out of the home they lived in with Jacob and into Brandy's deceased father's home in Thompsonville, Illinois, about 15 miles away. Brandy had notified many friends that they were broken up, that they had moved out, and she was happy to be able to spend time with her friends and family again. That night, however, Brandy told the kids that she was meeting Jacob to have dinner and spend the night at a motel to talk about their relationship in hopes of getting back together. She kissed her kids goodnight and left about 8 p.m. They never saw her again. She would have arrived at the shipyard by herself in her vehicle about 9 p.m. At 12:49 in the morning on February 15, 2020, however, a 911 call came in. The person that called in reported that a 37-year-old female, Brandy Osborne, was walking out in the road and floodwater swept her away. First responders arrived at the scene at 1:04 a.m. A note in the report states that at 2:22 a.m., the male half was getting checked out by EMS. What happened? According to loved ones, Jacob shared his story of what occurred that night when he saw her at the shipyard. The water on the Tennessee River was high. Jacob got off the barge and onto a tugboat or Johnny boat with at least one other employee and headed toward land. Brandy, wearing a hoodie, jeans, and rubber boots, got out of her vehicle and began walking toward them. The water reached above her knee as she walked toward Jacob. Jacob yelled for her to stop, walking toward him, telling her to get out of the water. He said she got swept away into the river. He said he jumped in after her to save her. Jacob got as far as he could toward the bank. When she panicked, he got underneath her, pushed her up, and toward the bank and told her to swim for the bank. He said he floated towards the empty barges. He said the river was running about 10 to 15 miles per hour. Her words to him, according to Jacob, was that she was okay. Jacob couldn't get back to her and she was gone. He said he stayed away long enough to float into something that was low enough for him that he could climb onto it for about 10 seconds. Jacob said he became hypothermic. He tried to stay awake and finally crawled into a shack long enough to warm up. He then stood up and began getting the attention of the others. He said he refused hospital attention and tried to share his recollections with the people that were there to help find her. He said they forced him to go to the hospital and get checked out. At the hospital, Jake said he passed a drug and alcohol screen. By the time he got back to the site where Brandy vanished, it was daylight. He walked down by the river to show others the last place he saw her, but they told him to go home because there was nothing that Jacob could do. And now it's time to add some facts and poke some holes. Here are some fun facts. Jacob called his mom first. Jacob then called a friend of theirs. Jacob never called Brandy's mother. Brandy left her children at home alone. There were no witnesses. For all we know, Brandy never even showed up there. Let's talk about the barges, barge companies, and shipyards. The front entrance of the location are expected to have cameras or locked gates. The front entrance of these locations are all barge areas are expected to have cameras or locked gates. This location actually had a gate and a fence, but that is not where Brandy's vehicle was located. It was understood that the other entrance that did not have a camera, did not have a gate, was where the vehicle was found, just several yards in. Because we do not even know Brandy was there, other than we can only believe what Jacob said, we can only go by where Brandy's vehicle was located. We should assume that employees are trained to know about safety, rules, regulations, policies, state requirements, and most of all, ethics. The water was so high that it flooded all the way to where Brandy's vehicle was parked, which is a good 200 yards away from the shore. Is it the responsibility of the captain or other employees to ensure people like Brandy can't just walk into a place like that? That could be dangerous, even fatal. Brandy isn't the first one by any means to have gone missing in the very same river that has traveled across multiple states, including Missouri, Kentucky, Illinois, Tennessee, Arkansas, and others, all the way down to New Orleans. This should lead us to believe that there are safety measures put in place to avoid these terrible accidents. Was there a guard? Why was she comfortable enough to get out of the car and walk toward him if he was coming towards her anyway? Did she have approval in writing to get on the property? Where were the cameras? Let's go with more fun facts. Brandy was terrified of water. Since she was a child, she never even went in the water. Brandy told people she was always afraid she would die by drowning. Now, while her true loved ones know Brandy, they knew that she just did not. All growing up, all adulthood, she never went inside the beach and started swimming. It's just something that she would not do. When we put out the information, his mother, Jacob's mother, decided to publicly contact us on our Facebook page for Missing Persons Awareness Network and make comments and have people post pictures of Brandy in a pool. Brandy did have a pool in her backyard. It was an above ground pool. Everybody knows you could stand in an above ground pool. The picture is of her standing in the above ground pool, her arms over the ledge and staring out towards the camera. There's another picture, there's actually two pictures that were also sent, and those pictures were of her laying in a float in that same pool. That does not mean that she's not terrified of going into deep water. This was the Mississippi River, which also is known as the Ohio River and the Tennessee River. If you've ever been through those, with those long bridges that go all the way across there, if you imagine how many people have gotten swept in or fell in or jumped in or committed suicide in those waters, they're terrifying. That is a far fetch. So for somebody to come and send us pictures like that, it makes you wonder, what was your purpose? Are you trying to say that she wasn't afraid to get in freezing temps, right? February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2020, and that would not have bothered her to go in the water? Is that what you're saying? Was that your purpose? I have more questions. Why was Jacob even out there if no one else was? And let's discuss the water in itself that night. The weather records show that the temperature outside that night, 17 degrees, with about 10-mile winds. According to the United States Search and Rescue Task Force, with the average water temperature between 40 to 50 degrees, a person would begin exhaustion or unconsciousness within 30 to 60 minutes. The expected arrival time being in the water, 1 to 3 hours. Survival time, 1 to 3 hours. Brandy gets there at 9 p.m. The police were called at 1 a.m. What happened in between those times? Can you even imagine stepping out of the car and seeing the water level 200 yards away from the barge onto a higher level ground where your car is parked? Can you imagine stepping into the water in freezing temp where your feet would hurt? The physical pain of putting your foot in the water I cannot imagine. But I can't imagine it being possible to continue walking forward either. You have to take that moment and just wonder, does it make sense? Is it possible? Is it even possible to physically not only step foot into it, but be okay with it and continue walking? Hours later, that Saturday, February 15th, 2021, Brandy's vehicle was found locked with the windows up, parked behind Jacob's car. Many of her belongings were found in the vehicle. There were 3 purses, all hers, in the vehicle, including the one that she used daily. They were unable to open the car because they didn't have the keys. The keys were missing. On February 16th, the police told Brandy's mother, Christina, she can take the vehicle. Christina had her own spare set of keys, but when Brandy's mother went to pick up the vehicle in the same spot it was left the night Brandy disappeared, something was different. She said that when she looked into the windows of her vehicle, everything looked like it was ransacked. All 3 purses were now dumped upside down, with most of all the contents of them in the vehicle are also missing. How did they even get in the vehicle if they didn't have the key? Brandy was the only one who had the key, and the mom had a separate spare key. Brandy's key's missing. How did anybody get in? 4.5 months later, June 24th, 2020, the Massac County Sheriff's Office in Illinois located a duffel bag full of her belongings that included items that were hers, her children's, and Jacob's. The Massac County Sheriff's Office said it was located up in a tree by the river in Joppa, Illinois. That's about 50 miles downstream from the shipyard where Brandy vanished. Rather than investigate the bag, it was simply given to the Kentucky Wildlife, Fish and Wildlife, and instead of investigating that as well, it was given to the family. Interestingly, all the belongings were not in the duffel bag as the report shows. I want to be clear. I spoke to the detectives of the Massac County Sheriff's Office. They did not investigate the bag thoroughly, but they did confirm that these were her belongings, contacted the lead agency, which was the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Agency, and that Detective Richardson, also confirmed that they did not thoroughly go into the belongings. It was not in 1, but 2 30-gallon trash bags. Did Brandy walk up to see Jacob with a bag when they were supposed to be heading to dinner in a motel? Why wasn't this bag in the vehicle with her purse and the rest of her belongings? How did this bag end up in Joppa? Let's talk about the contents of these bags. Wet clothes, loose papers, notebooks with handwriting in it, Social Security cards, all that were completely dry, clear, and completely legible. I saw these contents myself. 0 damage. You would have thought I brought that notebook in myself. Reading the notebook, it had Jacob's actual handwriting with a pen. A pen. In water in the river. No streaks. Loose papers, not destroyed. Social Security cards, perfect. How is that possible? 4.5 months. If the bags weren't in the river, then how and why did they get to Joppa, 50 miles away? My guess is because the only one person that could give them answers was the only one that was last seen with Brandy. No Brandy, no body. Jacob has had multiple battery charges and orders of protection against him since the year 2001. Some of them were men. Most of them were women. I believe I counted 4 different women. So let's talk about that. I picked up all the files. I went to Williamson County in Illinois, and I went to the Franklin County Courthouse, and I picked up all the files that I found. I'll discuss some of them. November 15th, 2001, Jacob was charged with aggravated battery for striking a man in the head with his fists. His mother paid to get him out on bond. I got a plea deal, and he was given 30 months probation. November 9th, 2002, he got his probation revoked, and Jacob remained on probation until May 3rd, 2005. In 2009, he was charged with battery and given, again, 12 months probation. 2010, there was an order of protection. March 2nd, 2011, there was another order of protection. The victim stated that Jacob was, quote-unquote, physically abusive, hitting and punching her. When Jacob moved out of her house, he removed her belongings from her property and burned her clothes in the yard. Special kind of twisted, that is not just something that normally happens. He told her that he was going to beat her so bad it would be worth the 5 years in prison. In 2013, Jacob was charged with battery and disorderly conduct. Again, 12 months probation. On October 26, 2017, about 12:30 in the morning, while Jacob was dating Brandy, Jacob drove his vehicle drunk down the road where they lived, with Brandy striking multiple U.S. mailboxes. He was seen driving both directions up and down his road, down the dead-end street, intentionally hitting every mailbox, totaling 4 or 5. Again, 12 months probation. In 2018, he was charged with battery again, and again, 24 months probation. I want to remind you that at that point, Brandy had already disappeared 2020. 4 months later, June 11th, 2020, Jacob threw a rock at a vehicle as it was traveling. That was another plea deal and 18 months probation. Most recently, April 15th, 2021, Jacob was charged with aggravated battery, domestic battery, and unlawful restraint. The report states that Jacob was charged for striking a woman in the face multiple times, causing a facial trauma and broken bones. It further states that Jacob is charged for detaining the same woman in a vehicle while driving through a rural area, not allowing her to leave. This same victim stated that she had been with Jacob for about 5 years prior to the incident. Brandy was with Jacob for about 6 years, which would mean that Jacob was with both women simultaneously. The victim states that he repeatedly battered her and threatened to kill her throughout the relationship. It states that, quote, intended to drown her like he did his ex-wife, unquote. Jacob's bail was paid, and he was released April 26, 2021. It didn't stop there. He reportedly moved with yet another woman, moved in with her in St. Louis, Missouri, while he was awaiting trial. May 7, 2021, Jacob reportedly made contact with his victim, the same one that he restrained and wouldn't let her out of the vehicle, violating his bail by attempting to contact her via email, text, and going to the victim's residence. 20 days later, the police go to the Jacob's residence, and his new girlfriend answers the door. The police notice bruising on her face and neck. June 9th, 2021, there was a warrant for Jacob's arrest. Jacob's bond is now at $750,000, and Jacob remains at the Franklin County Jail. Brandy's still missing. There's been no charges. There's been no investigation. And there's no answers. I just found out about Brandy's disappearance in mid-October 2021. Since then, I've spoken to many of those people in Brandy's family. Some of her friends that she alienated due to the domestic violence relationship she was in also wanted to speak. I contacted NAMUS, which is the organization that runs a national database for those like Brandy, to add her information, family DNA, dental records, fingerprints, when they are available, so that if Brandy is located anywhere in the United States, a match can be made. I worked with them together with the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Law Enforcement Agency leading her case. That is now published. I spoke to those in that agency along with the Kentucky State Police, the Marshall County Sheriff's Office, the Calvert City Police, Marshall County Emergency Management, and the Coast Guard, all of Kentucky. all agencies which collaborated in the search for Brandy. I went to visit the family, the location of where she lived with Jacob in Johnson City, and I also went to the place where she moved away from him in Thompsonville, Illinois, where she lived the night she left her children, went to the barge, and disappeared. I went to Wepfer Marina, where Brandy was last believed to have been at. Being at this location really gives you a visual that is needed in order to fully understand what Jacob said versus what can one really imagine. I did do a Facebook Live video, which you can find on our page, Missing Persons Awareness Network, NFP. In the video, Brandy's mother speaks out. I replay the words that were told to me of what reportedly might have happened to Brandy. I assure you, the story doesn't fit. The best things that we can do now, collectively as a community, as community members, across the nation, is to get the word out. Put out Brandy's poster, and you can find that poster on my website at www.missinginillinois.org. Utilize your social media platforms to bring forward the awareness Brandy needs to make a change. The change begins with law enforcement that can investigate this better with the information I have provided them. Law enforcement can speak with the Franklin County, Illinois State's Attorney's Office to get a clear understanding of what Jacob has done before Brandy's disappearance and after. They can work on building a case to find the truth. Thank you for taking your time with me and sharing your night with me. I'm your host, Gia Wright. I'm the president and founder of Missing Persons Awareness Network, NFP. You can follow my organization on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. You can find this and future episodes on Apple, Google, iTunes, and other podcast programs, and also on our website, again, at www.missinginillinois.org. This is Gia Wright with the Murder Bag. I've kind of started changing my mind about things and, me keeping investigation information quiet. When you have a case like this where you've got a woman of 3 children missing and nothing is said, you start wondering why. That whole tree line there is Illinois. I don't understand. So this is about 9 o'clock that she would have showed up here. She left home at approximately 8 p.m. according to the children. The oldest person at the house when she left was a teenager, which is her sister. And you could see, apparently anybody can come through here. Well, there's a human being over there and that thingy right there. So all of this is up above water. I don't know how far, but you could just walk right in, I guess. Okay. How old was Brandy?
She was 37.
Okay. Can you tell us when you found out that she was missing?
I found out through a lady that watched her children. She told me to come to Thompsonville, which was where my daughter and my grandsons were staying after her boyfriend of 6 years throwed her and the kids out, and I was to meet her, and she called me at 7:30 in the morning, and I told her that I wasn't meeting her anywhere until she told me what was going on, and she told me that either my daughter was missing or that she had drowned. So I drove to Thompsonville, and she couldn't give me any kind of information. So I got mad, I left, I went home, and I called the Kentucky State Police. And that's how I found out that she allegedly was swept away into the Tennessee. And then I lost my mind.
Did they tell you to come down here?
No.
And this was still in the morning on the 15th, right? The morning
Yes.
after. Okay. At this point, did you know that the kids were by themselves in the house by themselves all night long?
No,
Okay.
I found out later.
Okay. So at what point did you know that she was even here, or was told that she was even here?
When I come down here and Jake's truck and her truck was parked right behind his. And
Is that here on this road here?
Yes, yes. But the water was all the way up to probably about right here. And everything around here was flooded.
So let me get this straight. You're saying from where you're approximately where you're standing right here, everything where I'm at, all the way towards the water where you could barely see, all of this was water.
Yes, every bit of it was flooded.
You saw that yourself?
Yes.
So when you got here, do you remember like what time and date you got here?
I got here on the 16th. It was on Sunday.
Did they tell you to come?
No,
So nobody ever told you to come here?
no. I came down here on my own accord just to see, if her vehicle was here. And a Walt Whitfer from the marina over here came and talked to me. And that's when they had Kurt Kerner and Lee Cope was here. And they weren't, offering any information. Everything was a yes and no, but I was the one that asked. I asked if she would have been allowed, on the barge. He said it was against company policy for her to be on the barge. And I learned later that there's no one to be on the property.
No one was allowed on the property.
Yes.
But she was allowed.
Obviously she was here. Or no one knew that she was here.
So we're going to come out because we might have a visitor. Looks like there's a vehicle coming. That should be interesting. So when you got here, did you see any boats, any searches, any
Yeah, there was boats here,
Sure.
The rescue guy, was here. Kurt Kerner, Lee Cope was here, and they were, still had, a boat out there, and I walked up here, where the water, where the water wasn't, and I was screaming her name and looking for her all day long. I was here all day. I didn't leave.
I just want to know where my baby is. She's my only daughter.
I'm never going to have another one. And I want to know what happened to my daughter. And where is she? Someone knows. And I want to know. I want to bring her home. I want to give her a proper funeral. I want to lay my baby to rest. Somebody knows what happened to my daughter. And I just hope and pray and I ask God every night that someone will be bold and brave enough to come and state what really happened to her. I just want to bring her home. I want a place to go visit her. I talk to her every day. But her children have no place to go and visit her. Her brother, all the people, her friends that knew her and loved her. It's like she disappeared from the face of the earth. And I have to live with this every day. I lay awake in bed at night, thinking, where? Why? Someone knows. Please
Another
just
thing
come
that's
forward.
really important is what happened 4 months later.
I just want my baby to be brought
There
home.
was something found, and I want you to talk about that. How did you find out? And I guess for your initial call, right? Law enforcement, Massac County Sheriff's Office calls you. That's 50 miles down the river. What happens?
My sister-in-law was the one that got a hold of me because me being, clumsy like I am, I shut my phone in my car door, and it busted my phone. So they got a hold of my sister-in-law, and she got a hold of my niece. And then I called Sergeant Richardson, and I was allowed to come to Metropolis and
Illinois, Metropolis, Illinois.
and I picked up, at first the initial thing that they said was that it was in a duffel bag, and when I got there it was 2 trash bags full of stuff that
That's
belonged-
30-gallon trash bags. I just wanted to make sure everybody understands. There's 2 30-gallon trash bags that were located. And we're not going to talk about those items, but I'll go this route. And I did already speak to Massachusetts County Sheriff's Office as well. They had found these bags, a duffel bag, off the river. By the time Mom got, and this was June 24th. June 24th, 2020 is about 4.5 months after her disappearance. And we know it's hers because there is identification, Social Security cards, in among many other things that I'm not going to discuss. There was a bunch of clothes that were found in these 2 trash bags that I have personally seen and gone through myself. And they were found 50 miles down the river with Social Security cards, books, right? There's notebooks, there's handwritten that I can clearly read, right?
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about that. That bag was found June 24th. The report was written June 25th, and at some point after, Mom was called, right? How is it possible that you can go from over here, right? Because
Yes.
Mom already said that this is all flooded. This is flooded from right about where we're standing all the way down. And we're going to walk there again. You want to walk there again? All the way down. All of this is water. Why would you bring, if you're parking over here, to come all the way here with a duffel bag to go and say hi when you're supposed to be going out to dinner and spending the night at a motel? Why would you bring a duffel bag? Why is it the only thing that's found all the way in Massachusetts County, 50 miles away? Why would that happen? How did that happen? Is there an investigation? No. As far as something sinister? No. Where was that? Where was the Johnny boat at the time? I don't see one now. There might be one. Might be around the corner. There's a boat right there hanging. So what point does he say to her, hey, stop? And the writing said that we told her to stop. We told her to turn around so that she could be out of the water, and she didn't listen, and she got swept away. There's never going to be closure. You're never going to be able to understand, or you're definitely never going to be able to answer my questions that I've asked here on this video today. Why would she have gotten in the water? How did her car get here? Why did she even come here? Why would she have gotten out of the car if she had her cell phone and he had his cell phone and they were going to go out to dinner? Why would she have come out here with a duffel bag? And if she didn't come out here with a duffel bag, why did her duffel bag with personal belongings that have never hit the water? The clothes that were in there were sopping wet. The IDs, written hand notebooks, clear as day. They're not destroyed. They would have been destroyed, especially 4.5 months later, 50 miles down with barges everywhere. They're not destroyed. They're completely legible. And of course I have pictures. And of course I have video of every single piece of belonging.